Back in February, and I went on holiday to Tasmania, and I came back with a Retina IIIS camera that I'd bought in Devonport, I think. Finally I got time to service it. This is one for my collection. It's an early one. You can tell it's an early one because the aperture setting ring only goes up to f2.8. Later cameras, of course, at the aperture ring went up to f1.9. So this was a nice early example, but it had some serious issues. When I got it, the lens couldn't be mounted on the body correctly. It wouldn't couple all the way. And it turns out that was because the lens was jammed up. The mechanism there was just a real mess. Didn't work well at all. So the first task was to sort out that lens and get that working smoothly again, which I managed to achieve without too much trouble earlier in the year. But finally I got time to have a look at the body and see what was needed. I already knew it had some strange issues. The film advance used to jam at odd intervals. It turned out that the return spring on the release lever down inside the mechanism here that allows the film advance shaft to, it controls the motion of the film advance shaft so that when you go to advance it will only move in the advance position, and when it reaches the end of the stroke it will only return to the rest position. You can't inch it or wiggle it backwards or forwards. That spring was broken, and that was the cause of that particular issue. There were other problems. The meter coupling cord was broken. It turns out that somebody had had the front rings off and put them back in the wrong position. So inevitably, as you moved through the scale of settings, you reached a point where the cord just ran out of room to go and just snapped off at the end. So the cord needed replaced. Not a particularly serious issue, but certainly something that I could have done without. And was there anything else really wrong with it? It was the usual selection of loose screws, but you expect things like that. The leatherettes, now they were glued on with some really thick, dark brown, hard, brittle sort of rubbish. It wasn't shellac, I don't know what it was. It took an awful lot of scraping to get that rubbish off so that I would have leatherettes flexible enough to glue back in place correctly. But I did manage it. The leatherettes look quite tidy now. It's good. There was a little bit of corrosion under the leatherettes, but hardly any at all. And was there anything else? Oh yes, of course. Now on the Retina IIIS camera, like the Retina Reflex S, Reflex 3 or Reflex 4, the front panel is held onto the body with 4 screws, and under each of those 4 screws there are some little dished washers, spring washers. There are 3 in each position on the later cameras and only 2 on the earlier cameras. This camera of course should have had 2 washers in each position, and they're used so that you can finally adjust the position of the front panel to make sure that the lens mount is at the correct distance from the film plane. In this camera there were no washers, none at all. Whoever had serviced it at some stage had decided they were too hard to fight with because they are a little bit easy to displace and make life a little bit more awkward when you're trying to get things in position. They decided it was too much trouble and simply left them out. Well, inevitably what that would have meant was that the front panel would have been screwed back firmly to the body and it would have been too close to the film plane. So you could certainly compensate with the adjustment of the lens to make the lens fit the camera, but if you took another lens and tried it on the camera, the focus would have been incorrect. So that was certainly an issue, and not one that I really expected to find. Anything else? Oh, not much. The plastic cover, the window on the top of the meter, they're usually cracked. Now, minor cracks are usually no problem at all. I decided that since the cracking was pretty more than minor, and I had some replacement windows that I'd made out of some polycarbonate, I would replace that, and so I did. But here I have it. It's a nice early example of a Retina IIIS camera. I'm pleased to have it for my collection. It's certainly a tidy example. and now it's a proper working example too. Thanks for watching.